Boros Energy, one of the 2 out of 20 opponents that Jessie has faced this weekend that has been able to take her down, kicks us off with a Marsh Flats as our number 2 seed.
Yeah, Jessie, our number 3 seed, one of the, I think maybe the only person left in the tournament. Joe is our highest remaining seed.
First
seed's gone.
Yeah, one of the people that had, was it 38 match points at the end of Swiss? Extremely impressive showing. Also one of the 9-0s at the end of day 1.
Yes, yeah. We saw that a couple of our 9-0s had a rocky start, but Joe did not.
All right, so Jessie Robkin kicks it off with a Breeding Pool and a Tamio. Not a bad blocker here, and Joe just has a tapped Elegant Parlor. This is the one game that Jessie was able to pick up was the one that Joe didn't have an attacker early.
Yeah, it's super important to get that early sort of, clock so that your disruption can actually matter. If you just pick apart Breach but never try to end the game, they'll just rebuild. They're very, very good at that. So that early pressure matters a lot. So Joe probably has something as a follow-up here. And Goblin Bombardment, not quite what we're thinking about, but could lead to a lot of pressure later in the game.
All right, so going back over to Jessie after the Goblin Bombardment, she sends in with Tamio, creates a clue. Urza's Saga gets a counter. And now, the follow-up to that, looking like it might be a Malevolent Rumble? Mox Opal, excuse me.
Yeah.
And Imri.
Yeah, it looks like she's a Breach in hand looking for the station.
And this is the power of this Breach deck, is how fast it feels like it's just already threatening to literally end the game.
Yeah, the deck is so impressive. Jessie with her main deck copy Epiphany Needle. We'll get confirmation. Oh, she's pointing to the Goblin Bombardment. She's going to actually fight that. We've seen a lot of Joe's opponents named Ranger Captain since it's so impactful against Breach, and also Joe's playing 4 of them.
And I feel like that decision was really defined by what Imri flipped over. Hitting that Mishra's Bauble, it feels like this might be the kind of game where Imri being a card advantage engine matters a lot. But instead, the other way that could have gone is if she did hit that Grinding Station, Pithing Needle shutting off that Ranger Captain you mentioned could have just made it all clear for takeoff to combo.
Yeah, and now instead we're going to be here for a little bit as Joe's fetching up that 3rd land untapped. Probably a good sign we're just going to go back in the deck.
Oh, Captain, Joe's Captain, Ranger Captain.
Coming down. I'm curious to see what Joe grabs to go with it. Ocelot Pride's pretty good at sort of, being an army in a can. We also have seen Ragavan be a particular favorite of Joe's, something that you can sort of dash.
Yeah, some of it comes down to what the rest of Joe's hand looks like, right? Where if there's a bunch of creatures, something like Guide of Souls is pretty attractive here. But otherwise, having Ragavan, Ocelot, one of these better standalone threats makes a lot of sense. And you see him taking his time before they were playing for a Pro Tour invite. And that felt like it was high stakes. Now, buddy.
This World Invite is huge. We talked about it before. Most Magic players, it just feels like something you could never really make a goal. It's just so hard to do. With the Pro Tour is incredibly hard, but there's realistic passes. We saw 32 players punch their ticket this weekend. The World's Invite, you basically only get there by winning a Pro Tour or winning one of these regional championships. And so it's on the front of their mind, even more so than, when they were probably drawing into top 8.
Right, and it looks like Ocelot Pride's the get. Back over to Jessie. Saga goes up to 2. Tamio goes into combat, makes a clue. Imri goes to the graveyard for a Mishra's Bauble. Well, she goes hunting in the graveyard for a Mishra's Bauble. You understand.
Immediately popping.
All right, tapped Thundering Falls, using the information that she got from looking at the top of Joe's library with the Bauble. Oh, for a second it looked like Joe might sacrifice the Ranger Captain, and I thought, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think Joe's just cleaning the card, had a little dirt on it.
Yep. Yeah, this is the 17th round of Magic that they've played this weekend. Gonna get a little something on there.
Yeah.
What Surveil could be this tough?
I mean, some piece of interaction, right? Like a lightning bolt that's like kind of good.
Oh.
Jace, okay.
Okay.
That's one where now, that's a card you can play to draw some cards and make the game about it. And there's a little bit of pressure with this Ranger Captain, but not a ton right now. So Jesse's probably thinking, can my constructs maybe protect this? And I can sort of sit behind this, sculpt up a hand, and play a game.
Is there a concern that maybe Ragavan exiling it could just be ruinous? Like, I don't know how realistic it is to kill with Grape Shot with as much life as Boros Energy gains.
Yeah, it definitely something that, can happen. And also these constructs, it's just seeing Jesse just immediately activate. I mean, She has a
Okay.
5/5 construct. Galvanic Discharge is not big enough, and I see Joe shake his head a little bit.
Oh, no.
I think Joe made a little oopsie.
Uh-oh. Okay, so yeah, that was
Yeah.
Ranger Captain getting in. It looked clear for takeoff. It really was just clear to run into the linebacker that is a 5/5 construct token.
Yeah, I mean, one of the nice things about Joe starting off so strong at X and 1 is Joe got to draw for a couple rounds and then got back into the swings in a nail-biting hour-and-a-half long game against Victor we saw before. And I think, all this magic is just starting to get to you after such a long weekend.
Sure. Well, luckily for him, there's another Ranger Captain waiting in the wings. This one grabbing a Guide of Souls, passing back to Jessie. Urza's Saga goes up to Chapter 3, and now she has to think if it's second construct time or if maybe just floating a mana and going for broke is the way.
Yeah, after this first construct doesn't get answered specifically, too, because, I mean, there could have been a world where Joe goes, like, discharge, right, or something like that.
Sure.
But the fact that these went unanswered, just growing them and actually beating down because Joe had to recommit the Ranger Captain, and you're seeing Jessie grab this Haywire Mite.
Oh, that's nice against Bombardment.
Yeah, so now the thing gets answered via something like, March for the World Light, we have it covered still, and these are so big. I mean, Jessie's going to attack here. Assuming she attacks, it's for 7 down to 9. And now with the bobble, we're looking at 8. I mean, that's lethal on the next turn.
Okay, yeah, so here's the construct. Tamio also getting in because that basically represents a point with the third clue.
That's the 9th power.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Your math looks good.
Yeah, I mean, Joe would be in a tough spot even if we hadn't attacked the Ranger Captain in, right?
Sure.
These are huge constructs, but that attack has definitely put Joe firmly behind instead of sort of neck and neck.
Okay, so that bobble's now going to get sacrificed. Jessie targeting herself since she has a fetch land to pair with it. Just getting a hedge maze. Go ahead, surveil, set up a bit for next turn before Joe gets the chance to untap.
Yeah.
Still a mana up for the Haywire Mite.
Yeah. So they can easily catch, Static Prisoner, 2 of in the main deck, something like that. Just clean it up.
All right, and on the surveil, Jessie liked what she saw, went ahead, picked it up on upkeep off the Mishra's Baba. Looks like we're just trading it out.
Yep, maybe like a broken sleeve situation.
Yeah, sleeve's got a little bit of stank on it.
Yep. Both players with the same sleeves, I'm just noticing.
Oh, yeah. 2 players, big fans of Dragon Shield.
As we all are.
All right, 4 players right now around. You, me, both of them. Dragon Shield fans for days. All right, so Guide of Souls comes down. A Johnny on the table. Couple life, couple energy with the Guide of Souls.
Reminder that, if you're just tuning in, Needle is on Bombardment. So we're not going to have that Ajani immediately flip and start pushing a lot of damage. That could actually have been a way to maybe answer one of these constructs if we were able to, but that's not in the cards for us right now.
Yeah, the block sack stuff is one of the huge strengths that this deck has in usually a lot of creature mirrors.
Yeah.
And it's back to Jessie, very fast to untap. She knows she's in the driver's seat.
Yeah, and you're seeing it weighing on Joe. I mean, look, his demeanor's changed so much. It reminds me of Jessie's matchup versus Joe in the Swiss, where Jessie made a similar little error,
Basically
put herself on the back
same,
foot.
right, exactly. How the turntables.
They turn.
All right, Urza's Saga, up to Chapter 1. Mox Amber on the table. Jessie cracks a clue.
Yeah, I think she's maybe trying to force Joe's hand in cracking a Ranger Captain, try and maybe I don't need these contracts to be as big as they are. I can maybe get this Underworld Breach combo going, force a sack of the Ranger Captain. Then now you can't trade off my constructs. Life's looking good.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. And there's a point where forcing the crack on the Ranger Captain earlier just gives Joe fewer cards that he could choose to block with, and that's Otawara being channeled from Jessie's hand, targeting the cat token.
Yeah, that's great. As you see now an attack here. Going to make another clue.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These look like lethal constructs to me. Oh, they might be 10, actually.
Yeah, I think the amber hiding off screen in the opal.
Yeah, same number.
Yeah, good enough.
Yeah.
Good enough.
All right, couple chumps from Joe down to just Ranger Captain and Goblin Bombardment on the table. Jesse's making sure that she got her clue off Tamio from the looks of things. I think she was like, oh, wait, I sacrificed one. Do I have as many as I'm supposed to have? Making sure the battlefield's on the up and up. Okay, takes a look at Joe's top card, cracking Mishra's Bauble, and draws on Joe's upkeep.
Yeah, really notable, too. Jesse could have popped a clue, flipped the Tamio, ticked it up, had access to buy something back on the next turn, but rather have this clue engine going because Jesse, I think, has zero intention of comboing. We're just here to hang out and attack with 10-10s.
This is just not the game that she's trying to play here with all of these Ranger captains. It feels like Joe is kind of set to settle in, play a longer game, and instead, Jesse's punishing that patience.
Yeah, and this is sort of a telltale thing we see in Magic. Combo deck that can play a fair game are typically very, very strong. And Jesse really showing off the fair game half of her deck.
Okay, well, here's another Guide of Souls, backed up by that Ocelot Pride that the first Ranger captain of EOS got. We're going to see another life, another energy for Joe. He is not out of this, which is kind of absurd to think about.
Yeah, I mean, Joe is able to like sort of hold on for right now. Maybe they'll create a lot of blockers, excuse me. And Jesse, is just going to keep chugging along playing this fair game. But part of the upside we talk about this is she's still threatening the unfair game.
Okay, so shock in from Joe, going down to 8. Looking to tap 2, maybe 1. This is probably a Ragavan, and he's trying to figure out if he wants to dash it or just cast it.
Yeah, one of the nice things about dashing if you can't do anything else is it's just multiple triggers of your Guide of Souls.
Okay, yeah, just like you said, here's that Ragavan. 1 away from the city's blessing at this point.
Treasure would get us there.
Okay, so here's a serve for 5. This is Ragavan and Ranger Captain of Eos attacking, and it looks like the Guide of Souls counters are going to go on the Ragavan to force Jesse's hand and say, okay, well, you need to have a removal spell for Ragavan, or the city will be blessed.
Yeah, and we can use Haywire Might to answer the bombardment, but then we're losing on Static Prison. Also, I think it's worth noting, we probably exerted that Arena of Glory if we're doing this, right, on the Ragavan.
I think it was dashed.
Well, but our exerting an arena is very similar if you're down losing the mana. That's what I'm saying. If we're putting the counters here, that could be sort of what's going on with Joe. We'll have to see how that develops as the turns go on.
Yeah, right. Before, you think, well, maybe you want to get creature fall multiple times by dashing, but when you put the counters on it, how many times can you do that?
Exactly, yeah. It makes me think that maybe that is what happened here.
Yeah.
Jesse can still block the captain. Doing a little bit of math here. Double checking Ocelot Pride. Big moment in the game. We saw in game number 1, Joe hit Soul Guide Lantern off Jesse's deck with Rag. I'm sorry, the first time they played in the Swiss, pardon me, got a Soul Guide Lantern, and it was devastating. Something like that has to be going on in the back of Jesse's mind. Only a Tamio this time.
Well, with the treasure, that's a chump blocker.
That's true, and with the city's blessing, that's 2 clues if your Ocelot Pride staying around.
Yeah.
That's a lot of card advantage. I mean, obviously Jesse has a lot going for her, but if the game keeps going along, that could be a really good way to catch up.
And this also just represents a bunch of life gain, right? So we saw Ragavan put Joe up to 9. Tamio hitting the table with Guide of Souls teaming up to get Joe up to 10. That means Ocelot Pride's going to trigger and make a bunch of cats, gain even more life, even more energy. All of a sudden, these constructs might not be as lethal as they looked to have been a second ago.
Yeah. Joe making some cats now on the instep, getting some more energy and some more life.
All right, picking up the Ragavan.
Okay,
looks like
so
it was dashed.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesse's down to 10.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of respect there for Joe knowing this game can't play for too long if we're dashing and putting the counters there.
All right, Jesse's going to untap, roll Saga up to 2. Fresh card. Tapping the Mox Amber for Preordain?
Yep.
I think she looked at 2 cards, maybe just
Yeah,
the
it's a
slick
preordain.
way.
Yeah. Pull 2 up at the top.
Yeah, at a glance, it just looked like the Surveil.
I think Jesse here is trying to figure out how can I kill this Ranger Captain and then kill Joe in a very timely way, because now I'm kind of behind. I've got the bombardment checked with the needle for the moment, but that could go away, and that would be disastrous. So I do need to get that, along with just a big board is being built up here.
Right, this is the point where even in the world where the constructs can be lethal, Joe has 5 blockers?
It's a lot, and with the Ocelot Pride, we're making 2 a turn, 5 attackers, and it looks like Jesse's actually holding the constructs back. We're just making a clue now.
Yeah, and this is just her making sure life stays fine. Okay, fresh Mox Amber for Jesse. Tapping 2 to crack a clue. That transforms Tamio.
Okay, that's huge for stopping these 1/1s from being a large amount of pressure.
All right, it looks like Mishra's Bobble brought back with Emery. Sacks targeting Joe. Tamio did roll up, just like you said. Saga casting Aether Spell Bomb. That's actually really nice insurance, because that can bounce a Ranger Captain.
Yeah, that's a great way to get it off the board, maybe at end of turn, set up, play my breach on my turn.
Mm-hmm. All right, and Tamio's 1 and 2 so good. Tamio 3 hits the table for Robkin. All right, back over to Joe.
Figuring out how we're going to navigate this spot.
And looking at Jesse's list, there's 1 Bolt and 1 Swan Song that we haven't seen come up yet, and she's churned through a fair bit of her deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's very likely they could be in hand or close to it.
Mm-hmm.
Ranger Captain attacking here. Going to get jumped by the Guide of Souls.
Sure, so that's Ranger Captain in for 5, -1 from Tamio is 4.
Yeah, and she has the Bolt to kill it before it gets the power increase.
All right, Captain down. You know, Joe Saxon in response, kind of doing the well if it's dead anyway. Tamio making a clue. Nice with Ocelot Pride, like you were saying.
Yeah, a lot of cards available for Joe.
Man, I really feel like the access he's taxed on at this point.
Yeah, and that's something we see a lot from these energy decks. It's hard to have the right balance. They can present it against breach, threats, you know, pressure, disruption, but mana is an important part of that, and you can't fill out too much because you need to have a lot of it early.
Okay, so goes ahead, sacrifices the clue really quickly. Maybe his hand's a bit more anemic than we previously thought.
Yeah. Interesting play there from Joe. It's possible Joe maybe had the mana spoken for already and just knew there's 2 free.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, it was really quick. As here comes the Ragavan we knew from before.
Yep, and this is just cast the old-fashioned way. Life off Guide of Souls, energy as well.
Yep. That Ocelot Pride's going to trigger now. We've gained life. And looks like Joe's thinking about maybe playing another card. Something like another Ocelot Pride here would be pretty huge. That would get out of control very quickly.
All right, Static Prison.
Okay, so this will target the needle. Jesse can respond and hit with the Haywire Might so that the needle always stays on board and we don't get bombarded.
Do you go after the needle or the bombardment?
You mean the prison?
Oh, no, with the Haywire Might.
With the Haywire Might, yeah, I would probably go after the Static Prison instead of bombardment since there's multiple.
Sure.
In the deck, and I get to keep the needle, but this does tax the energy somewhat.
Okay, it looks like Jesse's going to go ahead and go after the bombardment. This is likely just paying respect to the fact that Joe has a few ways to actually get a needle off the board.
Yeah, maybe so. That makes sense. And also Jesse has Emery, so we can buy back the Haywire Might, re-get this prison. Mm-hmm. And if there's another thing that comes up, could use that as a way to get rid of, you know, something like the Ranger Captain.
Oh, you also get to, you get to reset your Pithing Needle this way. Yeah, this is super heads up from her.
Yeah, given that the mana was spoken for with the clue, makes this a lot less dangerous than had that mana been up.
Oh, and it's back to Jessie. She's untapping pretty quick. She didn't untap her Emery.
Yeah, and she's floating, and I think this is just...
Yeah, has floated mana from a Mox Opal, floated a mana from the Urza Saga. I have a feeling I know what that 2 mana means.
Yeah, I think here comes Underworld Breach, and, you know, it's all open deck lists here, so players know there's nothing like Surgical Extraction to be worried about or anything of that nature. All right, looks like
it's Malevolent Rumble. Okay. Well, there's Grinding Station, and she just puts Underworld Breach on the table. Station was the missing piece. Joe gives back the Tamio. We're going to game 2.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the moment too where Jessie maybe had like multiple rumbles, and she's like, I'm just going to rumble 3 times, and we'll figure it out.
Right, exactly. All right, taking a look at the sideboards, this is something that we touched on a bit going into the match, but starting on Jessie's side, she actually doesn't have anything like Fire Spout or Sweepers to speak of.
Yeah, you know, Jessie's sort of locking in for more longer, grindier games. You know, things like Strict Serenader, the sideboard. Instead, we have a Mountain that's getting one of these sideboard slots so that we can have game against White Orchid Phantom from that Ketchumos deck. Didn't quite convert today, but, you know, we're going to see probably some cards like Flame of Anor, Nature's Claim, Boseiju, Brain Surge, Lightning Bolt, Strict Serenade, Swansong, and Unholy Heat. We've seen Jessie have all those in earlier against Joe. Possible she changes it up now that she's played against Joe, seen Joe play a little bit more, but I imagine we're going to see most of the same beats there.
Yeah, given that we've seen Joe kind of play a more, let's say, patient game in the post-board situations where he's just happy to kind of posture to just sit back and say, hey, I can interrupt your combo for 1 mana. I'm happy to just basically develop 1 or 2 threats and ride those to victory while keeping you at arm's length for a while. So Jessie wants to prepare for that sort of game.
Yep. Meanwhile, from Joe, you know, we have a lot of cards we've probably talked a lot about this weekend. You know, we got the Stony Silence, the Orm Chant, the Weird Tear, the Forge Tinder, and the Wrath of the Skies. All things. So we're going to see those come in. I mean, we just saw Joe on camera a second ago against Victor Hawkins, where we had both the Wear Tear and the Orm Chant there near the end, combined with Flage, sort of close things out. So Joe ready to play those longer, grindier games.
And if you want to play some longer, grindier games, you're going to want to join us in Denver here pretty soon for Magic Spotlight Dragons.
Yep, that's going to be April 11th through the 13th, sealed deck. It is going to be a fun weekend. We're going to be streaming it here wherever you're watching us as well, so you can follow along there if you can't make it out to the event, but we'd love to have you.
Yeah, it's going to be April 11th through 13th in Denver. Head to starcitygames.com/SCGCon for more information.
Yep, Dragons of Turkey are coming soon. Preview season, it's Dragonstorm Tarkir, excuse me.
Tarkir Dragonstorm. We're going to get there together, brother.
I'm dyslexic. The preview season started a little bit here. It feels like I can't wait to see more of it, though.
Brother, you cannot just hit me with that.
I thought we were just saying facts.
Oh, no,
you were naming the set.
No,
I was naming my life. And so, you know, just facts going around.
Yeah, no, totally. Something that I really cannot emphasize enough is how important it feels for Joe to have, say, a 1 or a 2 mana creature that he's willing to commit his mana to in those early turns. It felt to me like the first game was defined by the fact that Jessie was able to sit back and just get 2 construct tokens, get a couple of attacks in with Tamio, and basically not ever have to respect Joe's side of the battlefield until, turn 4?
Yeah, that was a big, big part of the match earlier. And I think in general, too, you know, Joe wants to get something like an Ocelot Pride, like a Ragavan down early, and then just hold up, right, and play kind of like that Delvery game we've seen in other formats where you have a clock plus disruption.
Yeah, right, exactly. I think so frequently those disruption elements, or the disruptive elements, can feel good when you have them, but you do need to actually be progressing towards the end of the game, because every turn you have, say, an Orm's Chant with no pressure. That's just both of you effectively drawing a card, untapping your lands, developing a few more resources. If you actually have pressure, it is both of you get to draw that same card, but your opponent also lost, 5, 6 life in that exchange, and your opponent will run out of life if that happens enough times.
Yep, and that is sort of what we're trying to set up here. Players are cutting each other's decks. It's getting ready for game number 2 here to see if Jessie can tie it up and then face the Breach Mirror in the finals, or is Joe going to put us in a game number 3?
And for Jessie, this is long time coming for her in a lot of ways, where this is a deck she's been playing since, what, Underworld Breach was printed in Theros Beyond Death?
Yeah, I remember,
early 2020.
Yeah, I remember her talking about, she had like this idea for it, but Opal got banned.
Right.
She couldn't do it. Then she worked on the deck some more, iterated a bit, with Amber and everything like that in your early 2022-ish, I want to say. And then, played the deck, got I believe a top 8 finish at a SCG 10K, and sort of put the deck on the map, created some content about it, and then, was picked up by more and more players. And then now, since the unbanning of Mox Opal, has really solidified itself as the deck of Modern. I mean, there's just no two ways around it. 6 people in the top 8 of this event. We saw, a bunch more in Portland, a bunch more around the world. This deck has just been unbelievably good, and it feels like, if you registered Breach last couple weeks, you were just over the moon to be playing the deck because it's so strong.
In a lot of ways, I've seen, just birding her matches, we've been able to see her extremely intimate understanding of the deck rewarded with just knowing the stop points of, okay, this is the most brutal point that I could interact if I'm playing, say, a mirror, and my opponent waits to bounce my Underworld Breach with a sink into Stupor. Where would that hurt the hardest? And watching those little percentage points actually add up for her has been remarkable.
Yeah, and those little things are something that, lots of people can grind and catch up on, but Jessie sort of, like we were mentioning before, had a head start on a lot of other players.
Oh, okay, and it looks like Joe is agonizing. Already on 6, Jessie kept her 7. Joe, if I'm reading this hand correctly, it looks like a bunch of 3s, an Ajani, and 3 lands.
Yeah, I think that looks right to me as well, along with...
Oh, 2 Ajanis maybe?
I think it's, 2 Ajani's, 2 Ranger Captain, and Flage.
Well, 1 Ajani to the bottom of the library, so in the end, 1 Ajani.
Interesting on the second Ajani. You could use that to Legend Rule flip, have that pressure going, but Joe valuing the Flage. I wonder if Joe maybe boards in, leaves in 1 Flage and wants to guarantee have the 1 in case the game is one of those grindier ones.
Yeah, sure. I think the first or second copy makes some sense here. Jessie kicks us off with an Island, a Tamio, and a Mishra's Bauble. Having any time you get a pain-free source of mana against a deck that's actively trying to pressure you, it feels like you're just eking out extra percentage points.
Really, really are.
Elegant Parlor, the fetch from Joe on Jessie's instep. Surveil, at least thinking about it, Ben's Guide of Souls.
Yeah, I think really wanting that 3rd land, trying to wrap that one up.
Okay, I think Arena of Glory is what came off the top. So that's basically what he needed. Jessie looks at Joe's top card with a bauble in response to him casting the Ajani.
Drawing 2 there, 1 for the bauble, 1 for turn. With a clue popping, we could flip this Tamio if we wanted to. Even something like a Preordain.
Alright, so here's the attack with Tamio. Makes a clue. Likely thinking if she maybe wanted to block?
Yeah.
Tamio didn't die on 1, so it's unlikely Joe has any way to kill the Tamio for 1 mana.
Yeah, very true. As it looks like we're fetching up pretty quick here.
Yep. Fetch shock off a Misty. All of her cards are so diagonal at the moment that we're both leaning over.
Yeah, and it looks like she wants to flip the Tamio.
Okay. I actually think this is pretty good here. So rolling it up means Ajani's not really representing any damage. The cat's representing a gentle person's 1.
Yeah. Getting in just a little bit of points here, but matters.
Okay, so looks like Tamio down to 3. And hearing from our backup match, Corey Burkhart has taken the backup match 2-0, locking up his Worlds invite.
Congratulations to Corey. Great run there by Christian Baker as well. A little short of the Worlds, but Corey Burkhart winning 2-0, ready to play against either of these players as soon as they have decided their winner here.
Okay, and look at this. We see the cat, 1 off Tamio, Flage, 3 off Tamio. She goes to the bin, and it goes back to Jessie.
Yeah, and it's possible Jesse really wanted to set up to be behind that Tamio for a bit and sort of just, have some time, even though it would be getting pressured, just, relieve the pressure from the opponent, put it on her, give us a couple turns to draw some cards. But Pithing Needle being named, played and naming something.
All right.
I'm going to guess it's Ranger Captain. Any confirmation is Ranger Captain.
Whew. 2 of those in Joe's hand.
That is a nice one to name, and then unfortunately not a nice mill, but we do have the bobble, so we kind of have that sort of slow draw to a turn going for Imri.
Yeah, Imri Bobble's not bad. I think I see a Grape Shot hiding out in Jesse's hand as well, which could mop up a lot of what's on the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, Imri can recast that bobble. That's Storm 2 already. You play maybe a cantrip or something like that, suddenly the board's gone.
Sure. Strict Serenade, one of the notable mills from Imri from at least an information perspective. We're not going to see Imri recurring at any time soon, but after you've played the same person multiple times in the event, it is not a given they're going to board the same way every time.
Yeah, lots of times variations occur, play draw type stuff. Also, things I saw from earlier might affect me, right? Like, oh, your sideboarding in Brain Surge, didn't expect that. Here's this card instead. So it looks like another Arena Glory coming down.
This looks like an exerted Arena of Glory.
Yeah, players de-sleeving it. Good little sign.
Oh, yeah. Love the unsleeve on that. Just marking it's exerted. 2 more mana. And one of the red mana is being used on Ranger Captain of Eos to give it haste.
And I bet you we know it was getting searched off the deck.
Monkey, monkey, monkey.
Monkey, monkey, monkey.
Second red mana on the Monkey Pirate.
Ape strong
Not
together.
being cast for its dash cost, but dashing little fella.
Yeah, still has haste, ready to get in there.
Listen, you don't end up surrounded by all them jewels without a few combat steps under your belt.
It's true.
All right, bunch of attacks from Joe.
Yeah, and we're looking at Jesse's hand. Looks like Underworld Breach, Nature's Claim, Swan Song, Lightning Bolt.
Very reactive hand.
Yeah, so close. A Malevolent Rumble here could hit enough to win, which is wild to think. Looks like Jesse's thinking about, am I supposed to trade this Imri off the Ragavan? And the answer is yes in her mind.
Yeah, and honestly, that kind of makes a lot of sense to me because if she were to draw a 0-mana artifact, this could be a way to start escaping with Underworld Breach, just getting the Imri in the graveyard.
Makes a lot of sense. Also, Kalana sets up nicely to find another red source. We can do something like bolt down this Ranger Captain, Grape Shot down the remaining cats on the board.
Sure.
And then suddenly, Joe still has, I think, 2 cards in hand, but no pressure. We get a lot of breathing room.
All right, so Jesse takes that draw down to 11. Joe's 19 with 6 power in play, 2 turn clock, at least. Another Arena of Glory in the wings. A fetch land actually represents lethal from here because of the Flage in the graveyard with the remaining Arena of Glory.
Oh, yeah, great catch there. So, yeah, just have to do something like Nature's Claim, her own Pithing Needle, which is not where you want to be.
With the Ranger Captain on the table. That's nasty work.
It's a technically I'm alive moment.
Right, right.
But we'll have to see. I guess by that, yeah, same logic, even any untapped land off the top, if we kill one of these creatures, means Flage can come.
Okay, so here's a tap Steam Vents from Jesse and a pass.
Not strong.
Okay. All right. We are unexerting Arena of Glory, which is to say putting it back on the sleeve. It's still tapped. Joe's going to have a think about what to do from here.
Joe sizing up. Can I present lethal?
Oh, is that a Windswept Heath?
It does seem so, yeah. And Flage, the Titan of Fire's Fury, might be putting us in a game 3 here.
All right, the fetch. I have a feeling the basic.
Yeah.
Basic planes.
And we can't even bolt claim because our red and green are tied to the same land. This game we have our island and our Otawara. A little awkward here.
Okay, Flage escapes, and Jesse is picking them up.
Yeah.
We're going to game 3, and that is the pressure. That is the pressure that defines the games that Boros is able to win against Grinding Breach.
Yeah, having stuff to interact there and sort of, put him down is super important. And Jesse has to leave in these cards, has to bring in cards and leave in some in the case of Pithy Needle in order to stop that, right? I have to have this Nature's Claim because Stony Silence I can't really beat if it sticks without it, right? I have to have this Pithy Needle because Ranger Captain can be so backbreaking. The pressure that we always talk about other decks, this deck is also applying to Jesse's Breach. You have to have these things that you maybe don't want or don't line up perfectly because you just can't afford to be stone cold dead to them.
Right. This is a spot where there wasn't even really very much in the way of disruption from Joe. We saw Pithing Needle come down, and that did cost Jesse a card to check the Ranger Captain. But other than that, it basically was just playing creatures to the battlefield, faces the place, killing her on turn 5.
Yeah, and Joe tried to disrupt his Ranger Captain, but just didn't have it.
And if you want to throw your hat in the ring to play some competitive Magic of your own, there's another round of regional championships coming up.
Yeah, we're going to Minneapolis May 2nd through the 4th for the Regional Championship Standard.
Right. This is a regular Pro Tour destination. A wonderful city, honestly. I think extremely underappreciated. Big fan of Minneapolis. And that's going to be from May 2nd to May 4th.
Definitely want to come out there and see it all happen. You go to StarCityGames.com/SCGCon to get all the details.
And the format for that? Standard, buddy.
Yep. It's going to be a good time, but if Standard isn't your cup of tea, there's still a lot going on there. So,
right. And if you want to make sure you're staying up to date on everything in the TCG spaces, you're going to want to sign up for the SCG newsletter.
That's right. It has everything from the newest set releases, where we're heading for our next SCG Con, and more. You can sign up by going to starcitygames.com/newsletter.
Right. This is just one of those things that I know personally. I've been subscribed to this for well over a decade or something like that. It's one of the easiest ways if you're not that online all the time. You just get emails straight to your inbox to make sure that you know about what you can expect from TCG spaces.
I never miss an email.
Really?
I read them all.
Huh.
They sent it to me. Someone wrote it. It's worth reading. Do you not read all the mail you get?
No, I totally do. I definitely, I've been known to read from time to time.
Yeah, I have my Siri read it to me. I'm very busy, but I do listen. It's like an audiobook. Audiobooks count for reading.
You can't be Siri-us, can you?
Why would I lie?
Just for laughs.
I'm
Camaraderie.
very serious. Oh, okay, camaraderie. Speaking of camaraderie, we're all going to a camaraderie moment here as Jesse is taking a second to run to the bathroom. We're gonna wait.
Yeah, right. And believe it or not, there are actually 2 different rounds to the next round of regional championships that are going to be all standard. And something that I've loved about doing back-to-back regional championships, both Portland exactly a month ago actually into this one, is getting to watch the same format develop over that amount of time. I think it's really interesting to see the way both the decks have adapted and the different ways in deck selection that players have actually tried to attack what they perceive as maybe a solved format.
Definitely. It's been super interesting. I'm excited to see it for Hartford as well. It's going to be right after Minneapolis we talked about, and that's going to be happening in Standard where we see tons of innovation, right? Standard formats sort of typically actually move more. It's a little counterintuitive, but basically the higher the card count is, the higher the bar is for a card to be playable, right?
Sure.
There's so many good cards, so it pushes other things out. When the bar is lowered, you actually can play more cards because there's more space, right? It's like, oh, the best thing in the format isn't miles above this. It's maybe just a little bit above this. So we see more innovation, more movement, and I can't wait to see what Hartford has to show in store for us after Minneapolis.
Right. In a lot of ways, it just speaks to kind of having a tighter power level band in a bunch of ways, and I really appreciate just seeing. We saw at Magic Spotlight Foundations just a couple of months ago, we saw, 2 different decks that had their breakout weekend in the top 8.
Yep, we saw that as well. And then, with the Pro Tour, this, what was it, 2 weeks ago with Aether Drift, we saw Domain really make a big comeback too, right? And we saw that sort of thing happens all the time. We saw that, very awesome green-black graveyard deck as well.
Oh, I love that deck. I played the old the Night Howler Nemesis Immortals deck back in Theros Standard. That was before you played, wasn't it?
No, I know that. I'm just thinking about if the average viewer knows that, and I'm going to guess they don't. Because I barely know that. This is the enchantment bestow creature that was like a little rat guy.
Listen,
looking like this.
you kids have your malevolent rumbles. Back in my day, we had commune with the gods.
That is tough. You could not get that out of me.
Listen, it was at an SCG Invitational and everything. It was a nice deck, and the new version, Up the Beanstalk, even nicer. There aren't even bad cards in that deck.
I wouldn't go that far. I think one of the maybe the best interviews of all time. Player top eights gets to the Pro Tour and just goes, "I top eighted with a pile of uncommons."
Listen,
that's my favorite interview of all time.
Buddy, I was top 8 of a Pro Tour on Breakers with Torch Courier in my main deck, in an Eternal format. There is no such thing as a bad card to me. There are only underappreciated cards.
That's the company line. Interesting. I think we all have different opinions.
Listen, buddy, sometimes you just need a Raging Goblin.
Yeah, you just need to attack for one. Sometimes you got to give your Muxus haste as people are starting to maybe understand what we're talking about.
Okay, let's go ahead and get back to the feature match area. We could have rated it a little bit, and we're going to send somebody to Worlds in Game 3. We have Joe Leo up top, Boros Energy, going to be on the draw this game after having a bunch of nice pressure in the second game against Jesse Robkin, one of the creators of Grinding Breach, on the play, hoping for a good 7. Looks like a couple more lands than you usually want.
Yeah, this is a land-heavy hand.
Does have a Surveil land and a Mishra's Bauble, and it looks like she kept.
I think Jessie thinks she's playing Monopoly with all this property in her hand.
Okay, Joe rewarded for a mulligan last game, taking another one now. I do really appreciate that it feels like he's adapting and saying, okay, game 1, I saw what happened when I didn't have pressure. The first time these two played, round 13 of the Swiss, the game that Jesse won there was also the game where he didn't really have pressure. He knows what tools he needs to find to be successful here and is willing to put himself at a slight disadvantage to the end of finding those tools.
Yeah, great play here all weekend from Joe, everything I've seen. And like you're saying, adapting to each opponent on breaches. They all do have slight variations that matter a ton, In the previous round, Rin 6 in the top 8. That means, am I going to change the way I board with my Ocelot Prides? I'm going to rethink everything. Same here with Jesse having Brain Surge and things of that nature, as we do see a Bauble targeting ourselves right away, and we like what's on top.
Oh, and look at this. Did not play the Surveil land in her hand. Instead, like what she saw, drew it, just like you said, and now the Fetch land means she'll get another Surveil here. So despite having a ton of lands and what felt like air, there's a bunch of selection.
Yeah, good news, bad news here for Jesse. Bad news, we got one drop. Good news, it's the one that needs friends.
Yes, right. Guide of Souls, it's kind of just the annoying younger brother, unless it brings its older sister out with it.
Yeah, and Guide of Souls, definitely one of its biggest perks a lot of the times in this matchup is getting something out of, the sweeper range, right? Whether that's Fire Spout, whether that's Pyroclasm, Whip Flare, whatever it be. But Jesse doesn't have those, and so it's not going to really help in that regard.
All right, so we're going to go ahead, see an in-step fetch of Hedge Maze from Jesse. Surveillin. Ooh, there's some thinking to be had on this one. It's one of those where this is the infamous bad spell.
Pithing Needle. Okay, yeah. So, we've seen Jesse sort of be fine playing this earlier and having a 7s in the hand, but here we're just going to put it in the graveyard, try and find something a bit better. Like we talked about, kept a little bit of a land-heavy hand in game number 3 here.
Bend that Pithing Needle we talked about. Has a Mox Amber. Not a land if you're a purist, but in function, rather, it is sort of a land. Has Tamio after surveilling with Thundering Falls, likes what she sees and passes back. This is a blocker against early aggression.
Yeah, Tamio being an 0-3 is massive in this sort of spot here. Even if we somehow jump the Guide of Souls, we eventually can chump block if we have to. And if we don't have a good enough pressure, Galvanic Discharge here, timely on the Tamio. No protection for it. Uh-oh. Is Joe have a one-lander, or are we just slow rolling it?
All right, there's one of them.
Okay.
Okay,
we have
basic planes. We have a game on our hands.
Yeah, we saw Joe keep a one-lander in one of the games versus, I believe, Jesse, actually, at least one of the Breach players, unsure which. And missed for the first couple turns, had a lot of ones. And so I know Joe's willing to keep a hand that maybe has Orm Chant plus a couple ones on a one-lander. But Preordain, scribe to the bottom for Jesse, draw a card.
Yeah, notably, one of them was a Mox Opal. That just communicates to me that she's basically happy with what she has right now, but wants to find the combo rather than more air.
Yeah, it might also be holding the Mox Opal. Like we talked about in the past, too. Sometimes you have it, you just don't reveal it until it's online. It's Grape Shot for 2, answers the Guide of Soul, and now on Joe to put some pressure.
All right, 2 mana, 1 Stony Silence, hits the battlefield. Not what Jessie wants to see. But it's not pressure.
Yeah, it's not pressure. This is the one that sort of like prevents Jessie from going the hardest, right? But it is also the one that's going to be hanging around and be able to answer with something like Nature's Claim. So if Jessie can mill over that, she can't breach into that here. But found the grinding station. Something that could be big once we answer the Stony Silence.
Yeah, if anything, this Imri can at least put things on the table, which means that this Stony Silence, while holding back the floodgates, is going... This Imri will amass the flood.
Yes. As Jessie's trying to figure out what am I going to do to stop this Stony Silence. And the way she's looking at her graveyard, I wonder if she has a breach in hand and she's thinking about, you know, what do I do with that?
Oh, and Joe just passes back. Maybe too many 3s in hand. He has not hit that 3rd land drop yet.
Yeah, it could be a lot of 3s, and also maybe combine that with something like an Orum's Chant where, you know, wear, tear. So we've seen this happen a lot to the energy players where you board in like 11 cards, and you sometimes have like the sort of hand we saw here where it's like, am I really going to mulligan, removal spell, threat, Stony Silence, another thing? No, I'm going to hope to get there. And you just don't get there always. So, you know, not to say Joe's out of it, Joe just needs to sort of, you know, use this card that's buying him time effectively to find something to then close the door. As Thraben Charm looks maybe going after the graveyard. Right,
and that's in response to Imri trying to flash back what I think was a Mox Opal that notably hit Jessie's Grape Shot.
Yeah, so that's 1 less win condition in the deck for Jessie. She still has the Jace if she's sideboarded in, and we've seen her have it multiple times.
Oh, 4 mana. Here's that Jace you've been talking about. Gonna mill 2 for Jessie and draw a fresh one.
This is massive. This is now if we can protect this Jace, it will get us out from this Stony Silence. We will just draw cards, play a normal game. It is one of the things that you can actually stop as a win condition. Like you can Galvanic Discharge this and kill your opponent because they will not have a Jace in play. But Jessie doesn't have to go for it till she's safe. And right now, as you're having no pressure, just Thought Scour a player is really powerful.
Right, and this is just Jace getting to be split card advantage engine. Win the game piece.
And now Joe has to get something going soon here. Even if Joe has maybe another Thraben Charm wants to hold up, we probably need to tap out for something like an Ajani. Even dashing a Ragavan could be good here.
It's looking like that's what he's thinking about doing. Okay, it's Ajani for 2 mana.
Yeah, and if you're Jessie, you know that there's another piece of interaction in hand because if Joe only had this Ajani, even in this high stakes situation, he's just going to go land go, you know?
Sure.
Well, excuse me, Ajani go. So you know that's not there as Jace takes up.
All right. Malevolent Rumble, Flame of Anor, hit the bin. Fresh card hits Jessie's hand. She cracks a Misty Rainforest. My intuition is that this is going to be a preordain, and she's trying to strengthen her scries.
That makes sense to me as well. I think it's either that where we're like Nature's Claiming and starting to go off like with we don't have the breach yet. You know what I mean?
Oh,
we have a breach but not a station pardon. And so trying to just sort of, small thinning, make sure we know where everything is.
Yeah, hitting the Malevolent Rumble is huge to that end.
Yeah. And you're seeing, she seems a little tired, but confident about what's going on.
Totally. Okay, so here's Malevolent Rumble. That hits Beseju and Breach. Yeah, picks up the Breach really fast. Has Nature's Claim for the Stony Silence.
And, yeah, you're seeing Jessie saying Nature's Claim that, play my Underworld Breach, return my grinding station, and do it all like we've seen so much.
This is sack the spawn for the Underworld Breach. Now the grinding station is going to be escaped from the graveyard. Exiling 3 of them triggers itself.
That's going to then sacrifice the Mox Amber, and we're going to see what we've seen a bunch of times. And the Jace is in play, so this is where it gets slightly awkward, we do need to eventually have a card that can draw a card. So if all the preordains are gone or the brain surges, we won't be able to actually win this turn because we've already used the Jace. But if there's any draw spell, Jesse's making a blue man on each iteration of this. So normally, like Oracle will get cast. Jesse might win the game casting brain surge.
And there's the hand from Joe Leo. Jesse Robkin. LCQ on Friday, 5-0 in. Now, 19-2 on the weekend, going to the World Championships with the deck she helped create.
Yes.
I cannot emphasize enough how amazing a feeling that is.
It is so incredible to see. It is sort of a thing that everyone dreams about, right? Like, I'm going to brew this deck. It's going to do so well at the event.